The longest government shutdown is now over. All right. Let's talk about what just happened in Washington, D.C. and what this means for your money. Now, as I'm recording this, the House of Representatives has just passed the bill to end the longest government shutdown in American history, 43 long days. The Senate already approved the package earlier in the week with a 60-40 vote. And now the House has sent this bill on to President Trump with a 222 to 209 vote, mostly along party lines, right? So by the time a lot of you watch this video, there's a good chance that maybe the president has already gotten the bill, maybe signed the bill, or is about to sign it. Either way, the shutdown is effectively at the end of the road, right? And the government is on its way to reopening. Now, what I want to do in this video is simple, guys. I want to explain what's actually in this deal in plain language, okay? Talk about what both parties got and didn't get without any bias, okay? This is not far left, far right. This is right down the middle facts and what it means for you. And so I want to break down what this means for regular people, right? Federal workers, families on SNAP or WIC, people buying health insurance, and just regular investors. And finally, guys, I want to tell you what you should be doing right now with your money and your mindset moving forward. So let's start with what this bill actually is, okay? This bill is what's called a continuing resolution, or a CR. That's Congress's way of saying, we don't have a full permanent budget deal just yet, so we're going to sort of kick the can down the road. In this case, this CR, or continuing resolution, keeps most of the federal government fully funded at current spending levels until January 30th of 2026, okay? But this isn't just some short-term extension, okay? Inside this package, they also tucked in there 3 full year spending bills that are now locked in all the way through September of 2026. Those 3 appropriation bills that are locked in is the Department of Agriculture, right? That's where your WIC and your SNAP and your school meals and farm support and rural programs, all that is tied into the Department of Agriculture. Also fully funded is your military construction and your VA, your Veterans Affairs, right? Then thirdly, the entire legislative branch, right? That's Congress itself, the House, the Senate, and all their support offices, security. We'll talk about that. All that is fully funded through September 2026. So most of the rest of the government gets temporary funding until January. Now, let's talk about the key things inside this particular bill that affect us, right? Regular, real people. First, federal workers and contractors. One of the biggest pieces of this bill, everyone who missed paychecks during the shutdown is guaranteed full back pay. Not maybe, not if this and if that. No, full back pay for everybody. Also, federal agencies are required to reinstate federal workers who were laid off or who were fired because of the shutdown. And agencies are blocked from doing any mass layoffs through January 30th while this continuing resolution continues. That means if you got a reduction in force or a RIF notice and you work for the federal government and you were told your job was going away just because of the shutdown, this bill tells your agency to reverse that, bring you back and pay you what they owe you for the next 43 days, right? Now, the natural question is always going to be, right, when do I actually see money is what everybody's going to wonder. This law doesn't pick an exact date, right? It just says basically as soon as possible after the shutdown ends, you're going to get paid. Now, for some people, that might be the next regular paycheck cycle. For other people, it might be an extra off-cycle payment. We just don't know that just yet, right? So if you're a federal worker, you'll want to watch your agency emails and pay attention, right? Check with HR if you have to, but just pay attention to what's going on. Now, second, let's talk about SNAP and WIC, right? And other USDA programs. So we're clear. During this shutdown, some states had to front their own money to keep food benefits going. Some had to sort of delay or freeze any new applications that were coming on board. But this bill, this CR, it reimburses those states for any emergency spending they did because of SNAP or WIC or some of the rural programs, right? And then this bill also fully funds SNAP and WIC through the rest of the fiscal year. That means through September 30th of 2026. So in plain language, basically, if you're using SNAP, right, what a lot of folks still call food stamps, your benefits are not going away. All right. If you're on WIC, women, infants, and children, those supplemental food benefits are also stabilized, solid, good to go for the next year. States that dipped into their own pockets to keep people fed during the shutdown, they're all getting it all back from the federal government based on this bill. So for parents, grandparents, caregivers, whoever you are, listen, if you're worried about the shutdown, no need to worry no more. At least for now, this bill shores that up for the rest of the budget year. Remember, the budget year for the federal government ends, the fiscal year for the federal government ends on September 30th of every year. So you're good to go. Thirdly, there's a big fight here over healthcare, right? Healthcare has been a big issue over this whole government shutdown. It was the primary driver for why they couldn't come together. Specifically, Affordable Care Act subsidies. Now, I want to slow down here and explain this in real simple terms. If you buy health insurance on healthcare.gov or on whatever state you're in, they have their own marketplace platforms online. There's a good chance that you get a discount on your monthly premium, right? That discount is usually considered to be like a tax credit or what some people would refer to as a subsidy, right? So think of it like this. The full price of the plan might be $400 a month. You might only be able to afford $150 a month. A subsidy steps in and covers the remaining $250 for you. That's sort of what a subsidy does, right? So you can still be insured. Now, that's the difference between being covered and being uninsured for millions of people. Millions of people need that subsidy to help them pay for health care. Now, here's the problem. There is an enhanced version of that help, extra subsidy money that is scheduled to expire at the end of this year, right? If Congress doesn't act, okay? So Democrats, they wanted this shutdown deal to extend those health insurance tax credits or subsidies right now. They want to extend them, right? So Democrats wanted that inside this funding bill. Now, Republicans, on the other hand, they said, no, nope. That's a separate fight, a separate issue. We're not putting that into this government funding bill right here. We want you to accept these continuing resolutions without that stuff in it. Now, in the end, here's why everybody's up in arms. Republicans got their way on that specific point because this continuing resolution does not include any extension to those subsidies to healthcare. Instead, this deal basically promises a separate Senate vote in about a month, mid-December, to decide whether or not those extra subsidies for healthcare will be extended or not. And there's no guarantee that that vote in December on whether or not to extend these subsidies is going to actually pass, right? And there's no real requirement, and there's really no requirement in this bill to even say that the House will even have to look at it, right? So as of right now, the help is still scheduled to run out at the end of this year for healthcare, those subsidies, right? Unless Congress comes back somehow and fixes it. So what does this mean for real people? It means if you're shopping for insurance during open enrollment, you're picking a plan while not even knowing for sure if your discount will still be there, right? In several months from now. If Congress doesn't act, your healthcare premiums could go up by a lot for some families, right? That's why you heard a lot of Democrats during the shutdown say things like, look, people's healthcare is being left to chance. And why you heard Republicans say, we'll fight that battle later, right? So here's the fourth thing I want to mention. There's a huge security and capital operations piece that was tucked inside of this CR, this continuing resolution. So in other words, remember, this package doesn't just fund agencies. It also funds, as I said before, Congress themselves, right, for the full year. So part of that includes a huge increase in what they call security funding for members of Congress. So roughly about $203 million was specifically set aside to upgrade or boost the security for members of Congress, including more protection at their homes, more protection at events, right? We've seen in the last year or two where Congress people were attacked, right? So this bill is saying we're going to give you more security to cover you. Now, there was another $850 million for the U.S. Capitol Police as well. Plus, there's millions and more money out there for security for Supreme Court justices, right? For the and for U.S. Marshal Services to protect judges, federal judges, and some executive branch officials. So they're saying, hey, there's a lot of rhetoric that's heating up the American people. We need to make sure that we protect the lawmakers, the Congress members, the Supreme Court justices, the federal judges around the country. I kind of personally understand that because things are getting really, really heated nowadays when it comes to these politics in America. But listen, now who won and who lost? Look, here's where we need to be very clear and very balanced on this issue. Both Republicans and Democrats, right? They both wanted the government to be reopened. Let's be clear, right? Both sides wanted federal workers to get paid. Both sides wanted basic services like SNAP and WIC and all that to be restored. Okay. So I know you hear some outlets that will say, well, Democrats wanted this and the Republicans don't want that. Look, most Congress members that I can see, they pretty much wanted some of the same basic things. It was really one or two or three big issues they were fighting about. This shutdown was pretty much hurting people across the board. Federal employees, contractors, small businesses, families trying to travel, families trying to feed their kids, all this type of stuff. Republicans, they can point to a few things and say, we held the line on this. The bill does not really extend those enhanced, what they call ACA subsidies, those healthcare subsidies. That fight is being pushed into December, right? So Republicans can look at that and say, we won, right? The Republicans can also say the government is funded only temporarily for most agencies through January 30th, which means they still have leverage in another round of negotiations, right? Right. And then the Republicans also secured some of their more conservative priorities. Democrats, on the other hand, they can point to other things and say, hey, we got these protections in the deal ourselves. They got the shutdown to end after 43 days, right? Under a Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican president. The Democrats can come out and say, hey, we locked in full year funding for agriculture, which means SNAP benefits, WIC benefits, and food aid are all secured through the end of the fiscal year, right? They could look at that and say that's a political win for us as Democrats. They guaranteed back pay and reinstatement for federal workers who were fired during the shutdown. And they forced the Republicans to come to the table in December to deal with this healthcare subsidies issue. So the Republicans can point to some wins. The Democrats can point to some wins, and both sides could probably point to some things they lost. But at the end of the day, this is like most big Washington, D.C. compromises, right? Nobody gets everything they want. And regular people like you and me felt the pain while the two parties pretty much argued with each other. Let's just say it what it is, right? Congress couldn't get their act together. And by the way, Congress had a whole year to fund these 12 appropriation bills, by the way. And it's not really over, right? We got to see what happens coming up in December. Now, let's shift from the politics of this stuff to what you should be doing and thinking about in terms of your personal finances. Look, if you're a federal worker, here's how I would approach this. When your back pay hits, don't just celebrate and go back to normal, right? Use that back pay to perhaps, watch this now, perhaps catch up on the essentials first: housing, utilities, transportation, right? Food, rent, all that good stuff. Then contact your creditors, your credit card companies, your auto lenders if you have them, your mortgage company if you had to delay your mortgage payment. Let them know you were a part of the federal government shutdown. It's now ended and your income is coming back to normal. You can ask each of them, all of them, specifically about removing any late fees for you. A lot of times they will work with you on late fees given the situation, right? Or please remove any negative marks on connected to me, period. My credit or anything that you have showing up in your system, make sure all that's cleared because I just wasn't getting paid. You need to call and have that conversation with them. Now, a lot of companies, again, they're going to have some hardship policies, but they rarely apply these hardship policies if you don't ask, right? So you got to call them and ask. Then once your basics are all covered and you're caught up, now watch this. I want you to think about building a shutdown buffer fund, right? Or at least fully building out your emergency fund. So if something like this happens again in 6 weeks, you're covered, right? Even if it's just, $100 every paycheck or something. Set aside some cash that is specifically meant to cover you the next time Congress decides to not compromise with each other and shut the government down. It's coming. It's going to happen again. We all know that, because if history is our guide, we know this won't be the last shutdown. If you're a SNAP or a WIC recipient, your next steps are simply to check your EBT balance on the card, right? Check your state's portal. They might have information on the web that might give you some information on what to do next, or how to get what you need to get, or when it's coming, because states are going to be issuing some catch up, or some what they call some reimbursements or reimbursed payments for the period of shutdown. And then they'll be returning to their normal schedule, but they're a little bit off schedule right now in some states. That money is not just charity, though. When you get it, it's what you were supposed to receive while they was arguing, right? But you'll want to be careful about planning. Don't just assume that one large deposit is your new normal, right? Let's be honest with ourselves, right? Spread your food budget out. If you're shopping for health insurance on the ACA marketplace, right, like a lot of people are doing right now, here's the mindset. Don't just choose a plan as if Congress is guaranteed to fix everything in December. They may not, okay? Choose a plan as if that's not going to happen. That means looking at, if my subsidy shrinks or goes away, could I still keep this plan for a little while, right? Or would this plan crush my budget? Speaking of budget, make sure you're doing a budget. So you're getting all your ducks in a row and you're organizing your money. You're organizing your benefits. It's better to have a slightly more conservative or modest plan that you can sustain than having a plan that becomes unaffordable if something like this happens again. We know that the federal government shutdown also sort of interfered with some of the economic data that we normally get on a regular basis, right? Some reports couldn't be produced, right? With the government reopening, though, you have agencies such as the Bureau of Labor Statistics. All those agencies, they can get back to work now, right? They can do what they were doing before and start pumping out that data. That means the next jobs report, the next inflation report, the next GDP numbers, all of that is going to give the Federal Reserve, who's meeting in the next couple of weeks, a clearer picture of the numbers as the Federal Reserve, the FOMC, their committee decides what they're going to do with interest rates next. Listen, investors are already pretty much betting on the fact that a rate cut will be coming here in December, right? Maybe a 25 basis point or a quarter percentage point, right? So the numbers that's going to drive that should be coming soon as we're getting back to work and this government shutdown has come to an end. But listen, if you're an everyday investor, a regular investor, right? Here's my advice. Don't suddenly change your whole investing philosophy because finally Congress went in there and did its job and opened the federal government, right? The end of the government shutdown is not a long-term investing strategy and really shouldn't have anything to do with what you're doing in terms of investing. It's just an event. A lot of times that event doesn't have a real bearing on the stock market. Stick to your fundamentals, diversifying your portfolio, regular dollar cost average investing, right? Rebalancing like you always rebalance your portfolio, focusing on your time horizon, when you're going to need your money. Nothing should change in terms of how you invest. Now, if the market somehow tomorrow or the next day rallies because of the government shutdown has ended, great. You can just calmly use that as a chance to rebalance, right? Or you can calmly chill out, relax, and know that you're DCAing into the market. But when you see something start jumping, don't just run after it. Now, let me leave you with this, guys. This shutdown ran for 43 days. It became the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. It cost families money, paychecks. It delayed people's benefits, and it really shook people's confidence. And now people are probably less confident in the government. Look, this funding bill that we got, the CR, it does a few important things. It reopens the government. That's good. It pays workers. That's good. It secures food benefits for millions and millions of people who really need it. And it upgrades security for the Congress members and the Supreme Court members and the federal judges, right? And it also pushes the healthcare fight into the open instead of in the shadows. I challenge you to really learn about exactly what this healthcare fight is all about. Do some research. But here's the deal. This CR doesn't fix everything. We still have a big fight coming about how much help families are going to get with their health insurance premiums, right? That's coming. We still have another funding deadline coming up at the end of January. And we still live in a world, guys, where your career, your benefits, and your investments can be attached to decisions being made in Washington, D.C. that you have no control over. That's why on this channel, I like to keep pushing the same core message to you guys. Build a life where you are less fragile, less dependent on other people, diversifying your income, managing your debt wisely, doing all the things to take care of your four walls so that what happens in Washington, D.C. doesn't have a huge effect on you. Keep your expenses under control, keep your behaviors with money under control, invest with a clear plan, right? Clear plan of action. So when Washington, D.C. does what D.C. does, you're concerned, but you don't have to get destroyed over what they're doing in Congress. Listen, if you got any value from this quick update, guys, do me a favor, smash that like button below, share the video with someone who may need to hear it, and also drop a comment below. I want to hear from you. What do you think about this government opening? Let me know in the comments below, guys. Listen, the best person who's going to take care of the old you is the young you. Take good care of yourself and take care of other people. Until the next video, peace.